Coming off the heels of the previous episode, Lost Ones, I would like to dedicate this episode to my high school vice principal, Mrs. Anita Doherty, who passed away on March 28, 2022. You will be greatly missed by the entire Freeport Anglican High, Bishop Michael Ellen High School family, and the Bahamas at large. You will always be appreciated as a warrior for life.
Select the one to fight with, get it on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Pick and choose the right one, get it on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yeah. Select the one to fight with, get it on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yes, sir. Pick and choose the right one, get it on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up? You're tuned into another episode of Non Bae Says. I am your favorite Non Bae, P. Giovanni, aka PG13, aka PG13, and I would like to thank you for tuning into another episode and rocking with me once again. I hope you enjoy this episode, and today we're gonna have a long one. So let's get right into it. Well, unless your name is Patrick Starr or you're his roommate, how have you not seen or heard about the drama that went down at the Oscars, the 94th annual Oscars? Let's get into it, right? But in case for those who didn't miss it or didn't view it, I'll play it right now for the context of things that I want to discuss in this episode. So here's a clip of the mainstream drama that happened at the Oscars.
You know who's got the hardest job tonight? Javier Bardem and his wife are both nominated. Now, if she loses, he can't win. He is praying that Will Smith wins. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
All right, so for this episode, we ain't had to debate if this real or fake footage, but just the principle of the matter. So I could be just getting into a whole lot of discussion based on the entire scenario and the principles behind what happened. All right, so assessing the situation, I could tell you that this escalated way too quickly, and that's obviously on Will Smith's behalf, which makes me want to ask the question: how do women want to be protected or defended by their man in a relationship? And the second question I want to ask is, what does security mean to women in a relationship? You'd be surprised that protection and security are actually two different things when we get technical about it. And a lot of women seem to be confused about what they really want in terms of overall safety. You know, one of the criteria that a lot of women talk about having in a relationship and a marriage or having in a partner is having security, in quotation marks. They want to feel like they secure, and they want to feel like, you know, nobody could step up to them, nobody could approach them, and if they are in danger, they want to know that their partner has their back. Their partner will be able to give them a sense of security or ease them in a sense of security. They want to not be physically hurt, or they just want to not be hurt. But the thing is, they mixing up security and protection. Some women, when they say they want security, they really do be meaning they want protection, because they say it in the context or in the terms of, if somebody tries to physically attack them or even verbally attacks them, they want somebody to stand in and either take the blows for them or to literally fight back with words or fight back with fists in order to defend their honor. That's what a lot of women be talking about when they look for security in a partner, but nonetheless, they definitely mixing up the two terms. So right here, we are going to define each term, and this is from the Oxford Dictionary. So our first term is protect, which is a verb, and it defines as to keep safe from harm or injury. Used in a sentence, he tried to protect Kelly from the attack. And our second term is security, which is a noun. The first definition states the state of being free from danger or threat. And here's an example. The system is designed to provide maximum security against toxic spills. Some associated words would be safe, future, assured, safety, reliability, dependability, solidness, and soundness. The safety of a state or organization against criminal activities such as terrorism, theft, and espionage. Here's another example, a matter of national security. And the second definition is a thing deposited or pledged as a guarantee of the fulfillment of an undertaking of the repayment of a loan to be forfeited in case of a default. So that's like a security deposit. That's talking in financial terms. And yet alone, that one definition, because security actually splits into two definitions, it's along the lines of what I want to talk about a lot in this episode. Straight off the bat, we recognize that protection and security are two different parts of speech. One is a verb and the other is a noun, respectively. I'll take us back to primary school for a minute. As we all know that verbs are action words or things that we can physically do. And on the other hand, we know that nouns state a person, place, or a thing, or mentions an idea or perspective. So when we look at protection, let's look at protection as a physical action one must take to protect his or herself, space, belongings, loved ones, etc., a pet, whatever. And now let's look at security. We look at security as a concept, a state of being, an ideal, and basically a feeling. That's why we say we have a sense of security. And the thing is, women think they want security when it seems that they really looking for protection, which I was stating earlier. This is from what some of them describe they looking for in a conversation, and definitely from the conversations that I've heard on the internet about this particular situation that we are directly looking at now, of the clips that I showed you guys. They really want protection, and in turn the protection makes them feel secure. But once again, we could get more into depth with that as the episode progresses. But a lot of women, they actually don't want security, they just want the actual protection. And that don't mean a lot, honestly. It really don't mean a lot. And they actually confuse it what type of protection they even want. They actually confuse what protection is. Once again, and this is what I can try to talk about with these principles in this episode. So the reality is that we could have a sense or be in a state of security while not being protected at the same time. They ain't really that proportional. But once actually protection has to occur, we'll automatically be in a sense or a state of security. So they ain't really proportional. One could exist without the other. I can end up breaking that down later down the line. But in order to understand whether or not it's protection or security that we're looking for, we must assess the situation that we are in and understand how to move forward in that situation. So it's very particular that we pay attention to what is going on around us and our surroundings to know if we need to protect ourselves or we just want to feel secure in our surroundings. And that has to deal with all of the outside stimuli, whatever may be happening. It may not have to be dealing with a person. It could be dealing with an animal. It could be dealing with foliage. It could be dealing with debris. It could be dealing with objects, buildings, cars, whatever may have you. Whatever is in the surroundings that may present a hazard, we would have to use our surroundings to tell ourselves, hey, we want to feel secure that nothing can happen. And if it comes to a point, we'll be able to protect ourselves from something happening if something was to go out of whack. So this is where conflict resolution comes into play. It would drastically benefit all parties involved if each of us knew how to handle conflict resolution. But the unfortunate thing is, it still makes even the slightest of a difference if only one party understands conflict resolution. It could honestly be a death sentence if no party in the situation knows how to handle conflict resolution. Knowing how to handle conflict resolution allows situations to not go from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds, right? We acknowledge that there are stages that we must go through to reach an ultimate goal to diffuse any particular situation. Sometimes we technically have to go through all of the steps, but sometimes we could go through all of these steps much more quicker depending on the extremity of said situation. If it's already a hostile environment that we're in, it may take a longer time to go through the process. But if it's something small, minor, minuscule, or something that could be easily cleared up because if it's a misunderstanding or something as such, we could go through these steps quite easy. So even though this might sound cliche, communication is key. So when we go in through these steps, communication is key to help diffuse the situation. We have to effectively communicate, first of all, to understand where to meet each other at. That is very important. We have to meet each other at a certain point in the situation. Once we know where that base is, we can know if it's going to escalate, or we could start to diffuse it from escalating from that foundation, that base point. So we have to make sure all the channels of communications are met. The channels would be expressing the conflict, hearing, listening, discussing, understanding, and clarification. And then, only then, if all of these channels are met, we could move on to resolving the conflict. Once all the parties fully understand the situation at hand. And once it's time to resolve, all parties can agree to disagree or come to a mutual agreement. However, they try to resolve that at the end, once everybody clear about the way moving forward. It is mostly a definite important part of the communication. So it's imperative that our verbal communication is very calm and patient as to not escalate the set into a hostile environment. I mean, even though the situation might be a stressful one, we don't want to add fuel to the fire by being hostile in a hostile situation. So it's best to keep your nerves about you, to try to be as calm as possible, and to try to communicate verbally as calm as possible, and be as patient as possible, trying to understand the next person's perspective. So if and only if, once again, all the parties involved respond at any time of the conflict and the resolution process with physical violence, then I would say it's deemable to use physical attacking in terms of self-defense. So only if it comes to that point where somebody swing at you or lunge at you, whatever it may be, then you are within your rights to definitely use physical power to try to de-escalate the situation, because throughout the whole thing, our main goal is to de-escalate the situation so we can walk away, understand how to move forward from there, and nobody is hurt or even worse, killed. So based on the situation that we was looking at earlier, the Will Smith slap, it definitely unnecessarily escalated to a hostile environment way too quick. 0 to 100 way quick. The assessment of the setting that they were in, it was a public formal event. It was the Oscars, right? And Chris was just doing what he did. He was doing a stand-up set, being a comedian. That's what comedians do. He was just presenting an award, and he decided to go and roll off a set. Natural habitat for comedians, honestly. And he was just doing it in the typical way. He going off on some people, and then he was just jumping into the next set, jumping into other jokes as he was going down the line. He started off with Will, and then eventually, because he was on Will, he decided to jump over to Jada. Regina Hall did it earlier in the event. And whether Chris knew or not knew of any underlying matters at hand, there wasn't no physical shots sent out by him, so we ain't had to argue if he didn't know about Jada's condition or not, or whatever. He was not physical with the Smiths at any time during him rolling off his set and jokes about them. And to me, I think there were multiple things that Will Smith could have done to diffuse that situation before escalating to violence directly, like immediately. Like there's so much more channels he could have gone through, which we spoke about earlier, that he could have gone through instead of just sparking off his head automatically. So one thing is, he could have taken it in strides, and express and ensure to Jada that he would have handled it in an appropriate time in the immediate future, like right after the show. And I mean, granted that this angle may have not been the most conducive to Jada's feelings, as she was the butt of the joke basically, and it may have haunted her and been on her mind and stressed her out the entire night, then that might have been a conflict for when they both went home. And Will probably wouldn't have had the end of that because she wasn't going to be able to enjoy the show. And this ain't me trying to deflect the feelings, because she was within her rights to feel how she felt when the joke was told about her. But she should have still remembered that they was there to hopefully celebrate an achievement for Will too. Once again, I ain't trying to debunk her feelings, because she is 100. Let me state this clearly. She was 100% within her rights to feel how she felt. We can't tell nobody how to feel. But it should have clicked a little bit to say, look, I feel this way, but I don't want to tarnish or spoil the whole night. Let me try to be a soldier, take this with it. I mean, I feel like she was trying to take it like a soldier, honestly. Obviously, she was hurt. We could see in the footage she was hurt. But I did feel like I almost feel like she almost didn't expect that it was going to go to that. She might have felt a little bit bad that it went to that, but who knows. But anyway, a second thing Will could have done, he could have verbally made mention of how he didn't appreciate the joke directly from his seat without the physical assault. I mean, nothing really hindered him from doing so after he actually did the physical assault. So I don't understand why he couldn't have just not assault Chris Rock and just shout from his seat to get his point across. It's not too understandable why anyone should assault another person just to get their point across. I mean, even if you have to get your point across very sternly, you never have to resort to violence. You shouldn't have to ever resort to violence to get your point across. All right? Another thing is, if he wanted to make a big sabbatical about it, he could have just still walk up on the stage, just like how we approached Chris or whatever, and he could have choose to talk about it privately off mic and correct him, and then Chris Rock would have probably turned to the mic and expressed what Will told him, let the audience know, and probably apologize right there on the spot. Or Will could have just addressed it directly on the mic, so the entire auditorium could have witnessed what the discussion was about, and they could have resolved it from there. Will could even crack one or two jokes on Chris Rock just like that. Everybody wouldn't have feel uncomfortable. I'm sure Jada would have feel justified. Show would have gone on, and we wouldn't be here doing this episode and everything that was on the internet earlier. But mentioning these resolves, it brings about the point that Jada was definitely embarrassed. Let's go back on that. She was honestly definitely embarrassed about the joke. And at that time, all the pressure was on her, like I mentioned, which is quite fair. And she had every right to feel that way, once again, that I'm stating. I mean, she looked to her husband to protect her feelings and take the heat off of her, which is also fair and fine, because ain't nobody want to feel like the odd one singled out. Everybody laughing at you, literally, you being the butt of a joke. That's really uncomfortable. So I honestly totally get Jada's feeling. It was just unfortunate that immediate violence computed in Will's brain to spin all the pressure off Jada to Chris. I don't know how it processed in his mind to say, you know what, we gotta take the heat off of Jada. What I'm gonna do is violence. I mean, it was effective. It definitely was effective. But like I mentioned before, he could have done something else, literally walking up the stage and making the conversation that already would have been taking the heat off of Jada. People wouldn't have been even thinking about Jada or even the joke. And I mean, I promise, him stopping the show and arguing it out from his chair would have had the same result as for taking the pressure off Jada, like I just said. It would have had the same result rather than violence. Definitely would have had the same result rather than violence. So now, a little bit of a story time, right? So I wrote down a little story here to read off, and you can try read it word for word or whatever. So unfortunately, I was in a situation in one of my relationships, right? A situation that was somewhat similar to what happened, where a guy verbally attacked my girlfriend at the time in a group chat. And we was in a group chat of a podcast with two other podcast members. And it was me in the group, and it was my girlfriend at the time in the group. And it came to a point where he was through with the podcast. He just didn't want to be in it anymore. some things had come up what he didn't like or whatever, so he wanted to make his exit, right? But while he was making his exit, he just went off about what he didn't like about all of the group members. He singled us out immediately, and he went down a list of things that he disliked about us. So after he was finished his rant, he typed it out. He typed out the rant. I don't even think voice notes was a thing in WhatsApp at the time when that happened. But after he finished typing out his rant, he immediately left the group. And he didn't allow anybody to properly rebuttal for him to see it. And initially, I honestly brushed it off as, an irrational decision, an immature decision, and almost an act of cowardice, right? And I meant to deal with it in the immediate future. I was going to deal with it. I wasn't going to just sweep it aside and disregard her feelings. And in the moment, I was literally more focused on keeping the peace at the time and still trying to move forward with the goal of the podcast. Like, everybody understood, except for my girlfriend. Everybody at the time understood, because it was four of us guys who did the podcast, including the one who left the group. And she was the only girl in it, but she wasn't actually a physical part of the podcast. She was just in it because she just wanted to be in the group. She thought she could have organized us and helped us to achieve our goals better or whatever. But anyway, I was just focused on the goal of the podcast, trying to get things straightened out. Like, he was really our guy who was using the equipment and the space to record the podcast in. So with him being on, I was like, all right, how we can get this to work? And, not saying that I was disregarding, and that's not to say that I didn't consider her feelings, like I was about to say, and I wouldn't have defended her. But with so much going on, there was more pressing issues at the time. And once again, especially because she wasn't a direct active member of the podcast. But she definitely was furious that I didn't defend her in the moment. And she felt like I was a coward for not responding to the message, even though he had left the group, so he wouldn't have been able to see it. But she wanted me to respond to what he had to say so the other members could see it, so she felt defended. Ultimately, I felt pressured into directly confronting conflict. And it ain't like I was afraid to approach it, right? I wasn't afraid of the dude or whatever. And I wasn't afraid of confronting conflict. But I definitely wanted to deal with it in the way that I felt comfortable dealing with it. So eventually, like a day or so later, I banded the entire group together in another group chat and aired out the grievances back at the guy who spoke his mind, and thus I was defending, in quotation marks, my girlfriend at the time. But, of course, by that time, it really didn't matter to her, as she thought I had already let her down, and she definitely dragged me through the mud, and she also dragged my name through the mud in her friends group chat, saying that I leave her hanging, I was a wimp, I didn't defend her, and the whole nine. So she basically put disrespect clearly on my name, because she feel like in that moment, how she wanted me to react, I didn't react because our point of views was conflicting, and she didn't really think that, or gave me the space to allow me to react the way I felt comfortable in reacting, which if she did, she would have noticed that it would have been me still ending up defending her. Now, I understand sometimes it'd have to be immediate, but that situation, it was a group chat. Now, of course, if we was face to face, I would have had a live reaction. It would have been more immediate. But at the time, it was a group chat. You know what I'm saying? And homie leave. He run away from it. And I'm like, I ain't about to run down no little coward, or I ain't about to run down somebody who just could run away and think that they could just shoot off at the mountain. I was like, we adults, we more mature than that. Whenever I deal with it, I deal with it. And the thing is, in her mind, she was saying, when she literally told me this too, she was like, whenever I see him, I can make sure I give him a piece of my mind, regardless if you defend me or not. And she said she was gonna hold on to it. She's like, she don't care if she see him 2 years down the line. So I didn't understand how if she could have taken her time getting to respond to it, why I couldn't take my time to respond to it, to simmer down the situation. In contrast, here's another story, right? Another situation like this was when I was in a situationship one time, right? So there was a girl who I was talking to. She mentioned to me that she admired how I dealt with a particular situation where she felt threatened from an external force being another guy. She didn't specify what the situation was, and I honestly couldn't remember what the situation may have been, but she took a note of how I handled it. She admired how calmly and subtly I diffused the situation, and how I confidently asserted myself and dominated in the situation while making her feel secure. So she told me how she admired it and that she saw me as strong for doing so, and admitted that she didn't even believe something like that could have been handled in such a passive way. And when she admitted that to me, it encouraged me. It motivated me, and it made me feel proud and appreciated. Someone had finally taken notice and understood that as patient and passive as I am, I know how to resolve conflict and would step up to the situation if it calls for, And the good thing is she was patient about it, She didn't of course, she was probably looking out to see how I was going to defend her or deal with that situation. And the funny thing is, like I say, because I can't even remember recalling what situation it could have even been, it just was so natural that I did it. And I think that's one thing she noticed too. It was very naturally, it just was smooth. And it marveled. I don't know if before people didn't defend her like that or things happened like that, but I actually showed her something like that. And there are many other stories I could get into, but of course, this episode is already long. So let's continue on, right? The thing is, I really think that a lot of women have been threatened, in dangerous situations, or whatever you want to call it, where it was physical or their sense of security was shaken, right? And because there was no protection for them in that moment, they feel like if such a situation was to present itself again, where their security is threatened once again, or see another woman's security threatened, they are going to project what they need, or they would want to project the need to want to be protected in that situation, right? To be protected in that situation. However, the yearning for wanting to be protected doesn't really warrant violence. You ain't supposed to automatically just go to violence because you want to be protected, or if that's what you think should happen. Everybody does look for justice. Everybody wants to be redeemed. But we have to understand that we have to always think totally logically and rationally. We have to put logic and rationality first in situations. We ain't want to be extreme. We don't want to go off like a loose cannon and put ourselves into more danger. That is literally sometimes taking yourself into more danger if you don't think about a situation logically and rationally about what's going on, which is one of the important things in these situations I was talking about. You have to assess the situation. You have to assess the surroundings, what's going on, and from there move forward on how to diffuse it. You see? Although we might handle a situation a certain way, or think a situation should be handled in a certain way, it's totally unfair that we want our significant other to address the situation in a way that we think is appropriate to ourselves. Going back to the first story, she thought, my girlfriend at the time, she thought that I should have just responded, clapped back, immediate or whatever, but I had a way to deal with it, and it was only fair for her to let me deal with it my way. We must be fair and totally trustworthy, that we could allow our partner to handle things and lead things in the way that they would be comfortable, to allow them to resolve things in their own manner. You see, the ultimate goal is resolve. We want to resolve these conflicts. That's why it's called conflict resolution. We may not want them to have done things in a certain way. We probably wanted them to do things our way. But once the goal is achieved, that what totally matters. You know what I'm saying? So even if we didn't come about to the end result in the same manner or the same mindset, you just want to be defended. That's the thing. People just want to be defended in situations like this. And that's what all should matter. That's really what should matter. If something else matters, that's an issue that you got to check up on yourself about. That's a you problem, honestly. And I encourage people to check that out if that is a problem, Anyway, but another scenario to help explain this before I close out. Let's just say if somebody is trapped in a burning building. Let's just say it's a young girl for consistency. from there on out, right? So she's in need of somebody, a savior, to get her away from the fire, right? And so a firefighter goes in to save her. And until she's completely saved and fully out of harm's way, the young girl is honestly in a state of danger. Her sense of security is at a red alert, high, as she panics in the burning building, either screaming or numb from fear, unable to utter a word, So she sees the figures in the distance and is able to distinguish it as a firefighter. Now, her sense of security after seeing this figure drops to about maybe an amber alert due to the society's perceived notion that a firefighter can save people from a fire, and definitely, of course, firefighters are trained to rescue people from fires. But does she actually feel protected? Nope. Because as of all of this is going on, she's very much so in real danger. The danger never goes away. So she ain't never feel protected until she's out and clear of the danger. Her security level went down because she has faith that she can be saved and come out of danger. But as long as somebody in actual danger, which is the situation or the settings, they ain't gonna feel protected. The danger level is constant, although her security level has decreased. The firefighter shouts if anybody is in there, right? And when she screams out to him, he beckons her to stay put and assures her that he'll get her out safe and alive. Him doing that helps her state of security to drop a bit lower in the amber level, because she has a sense of hope once again, or faith, that somebody come to save her. And that's exactly why the firefighter is trained to beckon out to people to say, hey, we're gonna get you out of safely. They trying to calm people down so they could feel a sense of security. They ain't protect the person yet. They ain't rescued the person yet, but it's one of the steps to get them to come down. Even though her sense of security might drop a bit to the amber level, because there's a sense of hope and security that somebody could save her, guess what? She is still very much in danger. The danger level still never decreases, and she's nowhere near protected in that situation. So the firefighter approaches her, and she witnesses him being deterred by a piece of debris or something that probably falls from the roof right in front of him. So her sense of security, guess what? Even though it was dropping, it now escalates once again to red level, because even though she has faith that he could protect her and save her and stuff like that, there's a hindrance now prolonging her inevitable safety. So it don't have nothing to do with the firefighter's skill. It's the situation and the surroundings. Anyway, he's able to approach her and pick her up, and he proceeds to make their escape. Her security level probably almost at green, green, because now she really feels secure. She a little bit more calm. Somebody here, we in the act of escaping, being safe. But guess what? Right, you got it right. The danger level is still extremely high because of the setting and the surroundings. She isn't protected at all, even though she's in his arms. It's because, once again, the environment is still hostile. And while we can make ourselves feel secure in such an environment, it's our actions and sometimes our non-actions that actually protect us. And we have to assess how to act in these situations to bring about the desired result, which is always to de-escalate a situation. Remember, the whole key is to de-escalate situations. But anyway, I feel like I ramble on a whole lot too long. So the too long didn't read, or TLDR of all of this, is conflict resolution is imperative to keeping violence to a minimum in a hostile situation. As adults, we really need to do better in settling our differences and being examples for the younger generations. We can't be so toxic, endorsing all these things and acting like we're entitled to act the way we do. We really need to be accountable and responsible and strive to work together in order to live in true peace. We have to learn conflict resolution. Can't always resort to violence, can't condone violence, can't encourage it. And all those people who was condoning the violence and saying everything is justified need to stop it, because that ain't nothing justified in doing that. We just gotta learn conflict resolution and become our brother's keepers and peacefully resolve our conflict. It could happen. It most definitely could happen. But people have to be willing to do it. And I mean, I get it. I understand Sometimes you're just going through things and everybody has breaking points and stuff like that. But the strongest of us know how to deal with these situations, take it in strides. Whether you have to go and meditate, pray, do whatever you have to do, wusa, to ask for that amount of strength and patience to deal with things in such a manner, a peaceful manner, do it. But it definitely can be done. You don't want to be out there looking foolish, immature, and irrational, just popping off. You could put yourself in danger, you could put your family in danger, you could put your friends in danger, you could put your pets in danger, and something detrimental could happen that you might not want to happen. And we don't want none of that, but it's all on us to act in a way according to the situation and be responsible. Be responsible and learn how to deal with conflict resolution. Anyway, that's my time here. This is your favorite non-Bae. I would like to thank you once again for watching and listening through a whole episode of Non-Bae Says. I had to go through this one because this one touched me close to the heart, honestly, because even though it was like a trivial thing that brought it about, the funny thing is, in this situation, if you consider it to be fake, it is art that we do end up imitating in life, unfortunately. It hits home to a lot of people because we watching it happen, but stuff like this honestly happens in our everyday lives. We hear about stories about people killing each other over a disagreement while playing dominoes, or for a couple of dollars. Somebody owe somebody money, or somebody eat somebody food and somebody going to the hospital because there was a big fight or a shootout, or somebody shooting the next dude over gal, whatever may have you. And it's because people ain't learning how to talk it out. We just need to work together. But anyway, once again, like I say, thanks for watching. Hopefully something from this episode sank in. And once again, if you have any ideas of what I could talk about, or any ideas of what you want to hear, please let me know in the comments below, or just let me know in person, or shoot me a message. I'll be glad to, make reference to those topics and see what I have to say on them, alright? So, once again, this is your favorite non-Bae, signing out. Peace.